Internet! Today I am here to do my April wrap-up. It's not April, it's May. It's the kind of day I'm having. Hello Internet! Today I'm here to do my May wrap-up and my June TBR. I can't believe it's already June. Like, what? I had a pretty good reading month in May considering the fact that I moved and had to unpack things and I've been working full-time. I still managed to get 8 books read. Granted, I think 4 or 5 of these were on audio, but that's the great thing about audiobooks. They're just so helpful for this kind of thing. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the wrap-up first. I also participated in the A to Z readathon this month, and I knew I wasn't gonna read everything on my TBR, but I did a pretty good job at sticking to my TBR. The only ones that I read that weren't a part of my original TBR video for that were ones that I had started in April and I finished up in May. So I still read 7 letters worth, so that's not bad. The first book that I read in May was Stars Above by Marissa Meyer, and this is one that I started the audiobook for in April whenever I was packing, and then I finished it when I started unpacking. This is a collection of novellas from the Lunar Chronicle series, which is a series of sci-fi retellings of fairy tales, and a lot of the novellas in here happen before the Lunar Chronicles series starts or during the series, but there is an epilogue to Winter in here, which is the last book. So I will say I wouldn't recommend reading this until you're done with Winter, but this was pretty good. It was fun, like diving back into this world and seeing all the different characters again. I will say I didn't love all of the novellas. Some of them were a little bit boring to me, but there were also some really fantastic ones in here. I loved the epilogue, and then the one, what was it called? The Princess and the Guard. I loved that one very much as well. And I would definitely say if you're a fan of the Lunar Chronicles, you definitely should pick this up because it's very much worth it. And I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next thing I read was Everything by Nicola Yoon. I read this in preparation to watch the movie when it came out this month, but I haven't gotten to watch the movie yet. I hear it's good. I want to see it still. Hopefully I'll get to that. This is a YA contemporary about a girl named Maddie who has a rare disease that basically means she's allergic to pretty much everything. So she lives in her house, she breathes filtered air. She pretty much only ever sees her mom, who's also her doctor, and her nurse. And then one day they get some new neighbors, and Maddie's always very entranced by new neighbors, but she's very interested in these new neighbors because one of them is a boy about her age, and they start communicating and kind of forming a relationship. With the way that I've always heard this described, I was worried that it was going to be one of those stories where there's a girl with a problem and then she meets a boy and everything's better again. But I definitely don't think that this took that route, which made me happy. I thought it was a pretty fantastic story. I loved the writing style. I definitely want to read Nicola Yoon's other novel, The Sun Is Also a Star, and anything else she writes because I really enjoyed the writing and I enjoyed the characters, and this was just a really cute story. I will say though that I completely understand why people have a problem with this book because it can be very problematic, especially as far as mental illness is concerned in this book. I don't feel like that was handled as well as it should have been, so I totally get why people don't like this book, why people might take offense to it, and why it's problematic, and so I did want to throw that out there. But overall I did enjoy it, and I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Now I just gotta go see the movie. The next book I read is one of my favorite books I've read so far this year. So far, I think this is my second favorite book I've read so far this year. And that book was The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. I freaking loved this book. This book is about a girl named Molly. She is a twin, and she has had a lot of crushes in her lifetime, but she never does anything about it. Something that I can relate to. And then eventually when her twin sister Cassie ends up getting a girlfriend, Molly gets a little more frustrated and she's thinking that she might be ready to find someone for herself, and Cassie's annoyingly trying to help her out with that. So that's kind of what this is about. I loved this book. I related to Molly so much as a main character. And another wonderful thing about this book is it's incredibly diverse. You've got Molly, who is fat, and there's wonderful frat rep in here. As somebody who is overweight myself, I related to that aspect of this book so much, and I loved the way that it was handled. Molly also has anxiety that she takes medication for. Like I said, her twin sister is gay. She has a girlfriend. And they were also raised by two moms, one of which is gay and the other one is bisexual. And their moms are also an interracial couple, and the whole family's Jewish. So not to like make it sound like we're ticking off a list of diversity aspects in this book, but it's just you don't run across a book that has multiple diverse elements to it very often, and I really appreciated that in this book. And I think it was all handled really well as well. This is an Own Voices book as far as the anxiety is concerned, but I just really related to Molly as a main character, and this book just meant a lot to me because of that, and I highly recommended this book. Like I said, it's my second favorite book so far this year. The Hate U Give does beat it out at #1 still so far, but this one is close behind. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. The next two books, actually, that I read were both rereads for me. The first one is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, and I read this, I started reading it in April. I was listening to the audiobook in my car, but since it's so big, I didn't finish it until this month. Of course, I reread it to get ready to read A Court of Wings and Ruin, which I haven't read yet. Oops. But I loved this book even more the second time. It's no secret on this channel that I really was not a fan of A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I really did love A Court of Mist and Fury the first time I read it. I had heard such good things about this that that's the reason why I kept going with the series, and I do think it's worth it, although I totally get why people are put off by this series, because one of the problems I had with it was the abusiveness in the first book. Like, I just don't feel like it was handled as well as it is in this book, but that's my personal opinion. But I have heard some people who are triggered by abusive relationships say that they have a hard time with this series, and so I do want to make that known because I feel like not enough people do really talk about that. Especially this one. This is a fantastic book, and it's worth reading the first book so that you can experience the series, but if you are triggered by that, then maybe be careful going into it. But the first book is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and then this one's a retelling of kind of like Hades and Persephone and their story. But I originally, I think, rated this at 4.5 out of 5, but I ended up enjoying my reread so much that I just bumped it right up to a full 5 stars. I am very much looking forward to reading A Court of Wings and Ruin. I'm very curious, and this just kind of got me pumped up for it because I'm back in the mindset and the world, and it all kind of came back, so I'm glad that I reread this first. And then the next book that I also reread was Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and I really needed a cool audiobook to listen to while I finished unpacking my apartment, so I heard such good things about this one, and since I hadn't read Geminate yet, I thought it might not hurt to go ahead and reread this one first. Even though they're companion novels, I still kind of wanted a reminder of kind of how everything worked in this first book. The audiobook was extremely cool. Like, I don't even know how else to describe it. It was like listening to a movie. It had a full cast, and it had all the sound effects from like Aiden, and it was just so cool. It's definitely an experience. I highly recommend it. I've also heard that it's really cool to listen to the audiobook and flip through the physical book at the same time. I just don't have time to do something like that, but if I did, I totally would. But since I had already read the physical version of this first, it was cool to kind of go back and listen to the audiobook. And I'll probably do the same thing with Geminate, read the physical version first, and then before the third one comes out, go back and listen to the audiobook for that one, so that way I can kind of do both. This is a sci-fi series. And it's told in like a multimedia format. It's got like IMs and like scripts from video surveillance and just a bunch of like cool stuff. I'm sure you've heard about it. Everybody on BookTube has talked about it pretty much. Either they want to read it or they have read it. But it's fantastic, and sci-fi's not really my thing, but I really like this book. I can't wait to read Geminate, and I gave it a 5 stars. I kind of feel like I'm rambling a lot during this wrap-up, but I've had a long day, and I don't really have another time to film this, so this is the Sarah you're getting, and I'm sorry. The next book I finished was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I've been meaning to read this one for a while, and I finally got to it. I also listened to this one on audio, and I really liked the audiobook. This is kind of a unique story. I've never read anything like it. I don't even really know how to like explain the plot to you. But it's basically about this like island of peculiar children, sort of, and what Ransom Riggs did is he found all of these old photographs of like weird pictures of children, and I think he basically created a story around it. I don't think very many of the photos in this book are photoshopped, but I liked listening to the audiobook. I thought the narrator did a fairly good job, but also some of the pictures, like, I didn't want to have to stare at them on the page and then have to like read the words next to it, because I get creeped out really easily, and some of them are just kind of weird. So for me, it just worked better to listen to the audiobook and then go back and kind of like flip through and glance at the pictures. But I could definitely see where they would add a lot to the story if you would rather do it that way. I'm just weird, so that just worked better for me. Anyway, what I thought about the book, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, this is very different from anything I've ever read. I've been meaning to get to this for a while. I definitely see why it's hyped. I can't wait to read the next two books. I am waiting for the audiobook for the second book to arrive at my library branch so I can go pick it up and start listening to it. And I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Now I want to watch the movie. Okay, the next book that I read, it was kind of my priority this month, and it's only been a couple of days since I finished it, and I'm still feeling all of the things. It's a book that I've been trying to get to for several months. I finally did. That book is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This book was so good. Definitely gonna make my favorites of the year. Wow. I freaking love these characters and this duology and this world. And I'm so sad that this is only a duology. If you haven't read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom yet, you need to do that. So, since this is the sequel to Six of Crows, I'm not gonna talk about the plot of this one, but Six of Crows is the first book in this duology, and it's set in the Grisha universe, which is the same universe that Leigh Bardugo's first series, the Grisha trilogy, takes place in. This duology kind of takes place several years after the end of the Grisha trilogy is over, and it's about 6 characters who come together to do this like really intense, incredible heist, and it's so good, and I love it so much. It's definitely one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. I want everyone to read it. I keep recommending this duology to everybody. Now, I will say that the first book, Six of Crows, really doesn't have any spoilers for the Grisha trilogy in it, so you could theoretically read this duology and not read the Grisha trilogy. However, the reason it took me so long to get to this book is because I was told there were spoilers for the Grisha trilogy in Crooked Kingdom, and there definitely were. So you could just read the Six of Crows duology if you don't want to read the Grisha trilogy, but if you do want to read the Grisha trilogy, I highly recommend reading it before you read Crooked Kingdom, at least. Like, if you're not sure because you've never read anything by Leigh Bardugo before, you can read Six of Crows first, and then go back and read the Grisha trilogy if you want to. That's actually what I did, because I didn't know if I wanted to read the Grisha trilogy, and I liked that series. But Crooked Kingdom does have spoilers for the Grisha trilogy in there, so if you don't care about that, I definitely prefer this duology over the trilogy, but I just wanted to make sure that is well known. But it's just, this book was so good. I mean, I loved Six of Crows last year, but I loved this book even better. I obviously gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I'm a little bit obsessed with the series now, and like I said, I think everyone needs to read it. If you haven't yet, then you are missing out. And the last book that I read in, what month is it? May, was Gathering Blue by Lois Lowry. Like I said, it's been a day. This is the second book in the Giver Quartet, which is a companion series. So I read The Giver a couple of years ago, but since it's a companion series, I felt comfortable going ahead and going into this book because I wanted to check out the rest of the series because I really loved The Giver. And I have to say, this was my biggest disappointment of the month. I really just did not connect with the story. I had a hard time keeping up with what exactly was going on, and I don't know if that was just the writing or if I just was bored or if it was the audiobook, because I did listen to this on audio. I don't know what it was, but I I didn't care about the characters. I didn't really care about what was going on. I was just kind of ready for it to be over. But, I mean, it's short, so it was over pretty quick, but it was just kind of disappointing. I was expecting a lot more. I only ended up giving this 3 stars. I'm hoping that I like the last 2 books in the quartet better, because I loved The Giver, but this was kind of a disappointment. So that's it for my May wrap-up. Now, going into June, I've got several books on my TBR. I want to try and focus a lot on sequels this month. I'm not exclusively reading sequels, but most of the books on my TBR are sequels, because I just am getting behind on so many series, and in order to start new series, I really want to catch up on some first. So I'm kind of focusing on that this month. I'm also doing one readathon, the Read-O-Rama readathon, which is June 11th through the 17th, I think, but I've made a separate TBR video for that. I don't know if it's gone up or if it will be going up after this one. This is basically what I'm reading the rest of the month that is not during Read-O-Rama. So starting with what I am currently reading, first off I have Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is a book that I started actually back in April, but I really just wasn't in the mood for it this month. I was really craving YA this month for some reason. I don't know what it is, but this book is good. It's kind of about 2 Nigerian immigrants. One ends up in the United States and the other one ends up in the United Kingdom, at least so far. And kind of about, you know, it goes kind of back and forth from present tense to flashbacks and all of that stuff, and it's very different from anything I've ever read, but I really am enjoying it. I really like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's writing style, and I'm definitely going to finish it this month because I am enjoying it. It's very long. It's almost 600 pages, even though it doesn't look like it because it's kind of thinner paper, but I'm really enjoying it, so I'm going to finish this up this month for sure. I am also currently reading The Shadow Queen by C.J. Redwine. This is the first book in a series. I know I just said that I'm behind on series and then I started this one, but it was on my A to Z Readathon TBR and I wanted to read a retelling, okay? So like I said, this is a retelling. It's a retelling of Snow White, and after finishing up the last season of Once Upon a Time, I've really been wanting to read some fairy tale stuff. So I was in the mood for this. So far, I like it. I haven't gotten far enough into where I really feel like I'm super invested in what's going on yet, but I am looking forward to finishing it because I've heard that the book as a whole is like fantastic, and this is actually a companion series. So each one is a different fairy tale retelling, and they're all set in the same world, but I don't think they're really related to each other. Because I do have the second book in this series. It's called The Wish Granter, and it's a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, which sounds awesome. But I did want to read them in order anyway. And yeah, so far I'm liking it. I've got a couple of audiobooks already planned for the month. I'm just kind of waiting for them to arrive at my library. The first one I've already mentioned, and that's Hollow City by Ransom Riggs, which is the second book in the Miss Peregrines Peculiar Children series. And I mean, if it was anything like the first book, I think I'm going to be really into it. I'm just waiting to be able to start it. So this is on my TBR. The other audiobook that I know that I'm definitely going to be reading this month is Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. I really wanted to read this last month and I just didn't get around to it, but I have a huge interest in watching the new Netflix show. I'm very curious. I haven't heard great things about it, but since I haven't read the book yet, I don't want to watch it yet. I really loved the movies when I was a kid, so I would like to have the knowledge of the book going into the television show. But also this is a book that I've been wanting to read for a really long time and I just never did. So I did request this on audio as well, but it looks like there's a wait list for this one, so I don't know when I'm going to get it, but hopefully it will be sometime this month. Next up, of course, I have A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, because everyone has already read this somehow, even though it just came out a month ago. And I haven't yet because I was doing the A to Z readathon, but this is gonna happen this month. This is a chunker too, because they put it on those really thin pages like they did Empire of Storms that I hate. And this is 699 pages. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Sarah J. Maas does to wrap up this storyline, because even though there's going to be more books in the series, I think they're going to be companions, and I'm pretty sure this is the end of this particular storyline. So I'm very curious to see what she's done with that. I also kind of mentioned this one too, but this month I want to get to Geminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. That way I will be caught up on this series. This is the sequel to Illuminae, and there's going to be one more in this trilogy called Obsidio. And even though this is a chunker, with the way that it's told, I don't feel like it's going to take me that long to read it, so definitely going to get to this month. And the last book on my TBR that's not part of the Read-A-Rama TBR is Wayfarer by Alexandra Bracken. This is the sequel to Passenger, which is a duology. It's kind of a time travel historical fiction duology, and I enjoyed the first book, and I don't want to wait too long before I read this last book, because I did read the first one back in March, and it's already almost June, so I'm gonna try and get to this one this month as part of my trying to catch up on series and read sequels. So plus, look how pretty that is. So that's it for my wrap up and TBR. This video was a bit of a struggle. It's been a long day. I'm sorry if it's really long. I'm glad that you stuck through it if you're still here, but I didn't really have another day that I could film this for a while. So I decided to go ahead and get it done. Better than a weird Sarah than no Sarah at all, right? So let me know down in the comments what you read this month, and that will be it for this video, and I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye.